Hello, everyone, and welcome to Exploring Cinema. I'm Nate.
And I'm Dylan.
Today we are talking about Francis Ford Coppola's Rumblefish from
Yes.
1983. This
Mm-hmm.
string of 80s movies, it feels like we've been doing, it's purely coincidental.
Yep.
We did not really set out to do like half 80s movies out of our first six or so, but it's just kind of
No. And
worked out that way.
we'll go out of our way to avoid them in the future. This is the
Yes.
last 80s movie you're getting for a while, probably this year. So soak it in.
I know for sure there's at least one movie we're doing in October that's from the 80s.
Well, don't give it away. But yes.
I won't give it away. There's a horror movie from the 80s we're doing in October. That's just a little tease.
Okay. Horror movies don't count.
Yeah. They're their own thing. You got to find them wherever you can.
Mm-hmm.
But Dylan, would you like to tell the people what Rumblefish is about?
Indeed. Absent-minded street thug Rusty James struggles to live up to his legendary older brother's reputation and longs for the days of gang warfare.
Yes, that makes this movie sound so much more violent than it really is.
It does. I also feel like that's one of the better descriptions we've had in a while. We've been on a string where the descriptions have been a little off, but that's pretty accurate. I mean, it's a lot of living up to your older brother, and kind of the fantasy world that he thought he would grow into of like, gang warfare and having cred on the streets and all that.
Yeah,
That's a big
absolutely.
theme of this.
Yeah, so diving right in at a glance, Francis Ford Coppola.
I was going to say, before we dive in at a glance, just a little nod to the longtime listeners. This whole Rumblefish saga started one of our Criterion pickups, which you can go back and look at our Criterion episodes, and you can see the one where Nate picked up Rumblefish, and I hadn't even really ever heard of it, and he talked about it. We've kind of been itching to get around to it, so we finally did. So it came full circle.
I'm upset that I'm not holding it in my hands right now.
Yeah.
I thought about that, and then I just totally spaced, but, onward.
Yep.
We can't be looking back like Rusty James.
Yeah, no, Rusty James doesn't look back. And Rusty James, 2 first names for Rusty James.
Yes. So, back to it at a glance. Francis Ford Coppola in 1983, the same year he adapted The Outsiders, also written by S.E. Hinton. So kind of a very interesting 1-2 punch there.
Yeah.
One kind of a movie about teenagers that's more commercial and just a little more straightforward in the type of story that you'd expect in The Outsiders, and then another with Rumblefish that is much more an art house movie, almost in the form of like the French New Wave, or he listed German Expressionism as like a big influence on this movie as well. So with the black and white and kind of going back and watching like Fritz Lang movies. So I thought that was really interesting that these came out same year, same director, adapted from the books from the same author. They both have Matt Dillon. So it'd be a very interesting double feature. This movie had a $10 million budget and it made $2.5 million.
Wow. Small potatoes all the way around.
Yes. Or maybe not even enough for potatoes.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah.
2.8 million. Wow.
Interesting movie to do on Exploring Cinema here. A movie that lost money, and in a way where like it only made $2.5 million. And it's just kind of interesting that this is still, it feels ahead of its time in many ways, I think. So I can understand why this has kind of gained more momentum and respect and admiration as it's aged.
Yeah.
So with that, 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, 7.1 on IMDb, and a 3.8 on Letterboxd. So it's not negative anywhere.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Seems like it deserves more than 2.8 million with those ratings.
Yeah. And then Coppola called it one of his favorites of his own movies. And Sofia Coppola said it was her favorite of her father's movies. She's also in it.
Oh, she is?
She was the younger sister, Diane Lane's younger sister.
Oh, okay.
But she was in The Outsiders as well, and Godfather 1 and 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Godfather 1, she played baby Anthony at the christening at the end of the movie.
Wow.
So she's in more Godfather movies than Marlon Brando.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Strong nepotism.
Yeah, absolutely. And then kind of reading reviews for this movie, it looks like something that people didn't quite know what to make of when it
Yeah.
came out. I just pulled one from Jay Scott from the Globe and Mail. Francis Coppola, bless his theatrical soul, may have the commercial sense of a newt, but he has the heart of a revolutionary and the talent of a great artist.
Okay. Yeah. I
I'm not
guess
sure what type of commercial sense newts generally have,
yeah. Yeah. Probably not
but
much, but
not a lot.
hmm
So it's kind of a lot of those. Roger Ebert really liked it. It just kind of seems like one of those movies that people are like, this is really interesting. I don't know who's gonna watch this.
mm-hmm. Well, in that way, it
Which
is kind of ahead of its time.
Yeah, I think it really is.
Hmm
So before we dive into the full discussion here, remember to like the video. If you like this, subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss any of our deep dive discussions on just kind of random old classic or hidden gem type of movies.
Mm.
And it'll really help us out to get more likes and subscribes. So moving on, opening statements. I can go first
Yeah,
unless
you go
you're
first.
itching to. Okay, I'll go first. My opening statement is that this movie is very sad.
Yeah, kind of a slow burn sadness.
Yeah, that was just the sort of overarching feeling that I had throughout the whole movie and a lot of what stuck with me. I mean, obviously Motorcycle Boy is
Hmm
she just has really interesting names for her characters, doesn't she?
Yeah,
Essie
yeah.
Hinton.
hmm Yeah,
Yeah, so
motorcycle boy.
even and because it's not just that it's a nickname, but it's the only name you ever get for her characters.
hmm
Like
hmm
everybody calls him Motorcycle Boy,
Yeah,
and he's like 24
yeah.
or
And he just
something.
has accepted it and doesn't
Right.
correct anyone, or at least not on camera.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, Mickey Rourke there, it's easy to understand and watch this movie and view him as kind of a sad and tragic character. But there was also, to me, just a deep sadness to Matt Dillon's character, Rusty James, as
Hmm
well. Not that he was aware of that necessarily, but just kind of this idea that he thinks the world is this one way and he's been preparing himself for that for his whole life.
Yeah.
And just this slow realization that it's not that way at all.
hmm
I think a
hmm
lot of people have gone through things like that, particularly areas where you think, this is important to me, therefore it must be important to everybody. I
Yeah,
think that
interesting.
kind of hangs him up as well, where he has this
Yeah.
vision that he's going to sort of take the throne, so to speak, that his brother has,
hmm
willingly abandoned and lead this new gang of his friends who are all around the age of like 18 into the future.
hmm
And they all get older and you kind of realize that like other people just don't really care and they don't see the world that way.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I was gonna say. Like he discovers that that world is much smaller than he thought it was, and it's not
Mhm.
really like a way to live. It's not.
Right.
And it's interesting too because where the movie ends up, I feel like it's very kind of almost ambiguous, where it's just kind of him. He goes all the way to the ocean, and then it's just kind of him alone looking out on the ocean, and that fits really well with all the themes and everything. But I was thinking about it more afterwards, and when the movie first ended, I kind of felt it was like kind of a happy ending, like like he realized that he has to be on his own and he's like going to start a new life. But now the more I've thought about it, like it's actually just sad because now he's just, there's no guarantee that the rest of his life is going to be great. He's just really like shed what he thought his life was going to be. So is that how much of a
Yeah,
victory is that?
I think it can be both. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a good thing that he left and that he kind of I mean, the symbolism of the ocean there I think is very well used and that final shot I think is phenomenal.
Yep. hmm
Reminded me a lot of the 400 blows, which had to be intentional.
hmm hmm
And it can be a positive thing that he's sort of moved on from what he thought his life was going to be, where it was kind of headed nowhere that you
Yeah.
understood as a viewer. And it's also just terrifying because that's what happens when you kind of grow up and realize that it's going to be different than I thought. And now that and it kind of goes towards this existentialism of I'm aware now that I can do anything. And
Mm-hmm.
that's terrifying because you have thousands of choices instead of kind of a comfort of just trying to step into footprints that you can just follow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very interesting. And interesting that the motorcycle is there in the shot with him because,
Mm-hmm.
Motorcycle Boy was his older brother who he wanted to be. And then in the end, it's him by himself. So is he Motorcycle Boy or is he like Motorcycle Man? Has he, I don't think it's a coincidence that Motorcycle Boy is like has boy in his name because a lot of it is about like growing up and maturing. So I just think it's interesting that it's just him and the motorcycle, and you wonder where he's going to go from here.
Yeah.
Um,
So, what did you have for your opening statement?
that Rumblefish is a fascinating indie debut from an extremely established director. That's what it felt like. I didn't feel like the same guy who directed The Godfather directed this. It just didn't feel like this felt very much like it could have been just like a 90s kind of indie movie by like any director or even just like an obscure director almost. Like it just
Or
felt
like a
so
Jarmusch movie?
yeah, Jarmusch movie, or even a little bit like Lahane, like it just the black and white, the kind of stripped down minimalist, a lot of bare walls, a lot of there isn't a lot of fluff. It seems like it could have been shot on a shoestring budget. I know you said like 10 million, but considering the actors that are in this, I feel like most of that budget probably went to the actors, and because a lot of the rest of it is just kind of like the streets of Tulsa and random alleys and stuff like that. So it was not what I was expecting. Um, I would agree that I think it's good, and I think it is trying to say something, and it has made me think. I think it's pretty smart. Um, but it also it felt like I said, kind of like very small, kind of felt like a play almost at times to me. Um, and so just a very uh interesting watching experience. Yeah, I just feel like with Coppola's other movies, they just feel so heavy and dense. Like they're big, like a Coppola movie is like a big steak. And this didn't feel as heavy or anything like that. This felt almost like puppets compared to like what he normally does. Like, and so I liked it. I can definitely see why nobody really knew what to do with it. I think it's definitely ahead of its time for sure. I think coming out in '83, I feel like if this movie would have come out in the mid '90s, might have been more appreciated.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Where he was kind of, yeah, I like calling this movie ahead of its time, and yeah, this feels either like a first movie or one that a type of movie that a director has always wanted to make, but didn't have the like funding and the cred to just kind of do one of those whatever you want
Yeah.
types of stories, and that's
Mhm.
clearly what this is. And just
Yeah.
kind of reading more about Coppola, like this feels truer to the types of movies that he always wanted to make, which
Interesting.
is
Okay.
interesting, just generally being familiar with the Godfather movies and like Apocalypse Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
these big epics. And then you
Hmm.
just get something small and character focused like this that has this kind of like poetic, surreal feel
Yeah.
to it
Yeah.
as well, which it was just fascinating to watch. And it's definitely stuck in my head as well. I didn't know how I felt about it when it ended, but I've been thinking about it ever since we watched it like 3 nights ago,
Hmm.
which is
Hmm.
not something I can say about every movie. I mean, there are a lot where I forget 3 days later that I even watched it.
Hmm. Hmm. Same.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Moving
with
on.
that, I was going to dive into the defining moments, and I kind
Hmm.
of had three
Okay.
really. I mean, that the Rumble lives up to the hype
At the
and lives
beginning.
up, yeah, at the beginning, and lives up to like how they kind of build it and what they're going towards.
Yep.
Like very memorable there. And then just kind of the juxtaposition of the beginning and the ending. I think they bookend the movie really well, where Fishburne's character comes in and tells Rusty James that some guy's looking for him. He's gonna kill you, Rusty James.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's just set up so much like how Rusty James views his life in his own head.
Hmm.
Like, kind of that Jim Jeffries joke that we discussed while watching the movie. Like, you must think a lot of yourself if you think people are coming to murder you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he has this very dramatic view of kind of this gang life that he wants to be a part of and views himself as a leader of.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy he's playing pool. The guy comes in and tells him someone's going to try to kill him. And he's got his boys there and he's
Mm-hmm.
ready to put together a crew and have a rumble.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell right away that it doesn't really go that way because he misses the pool shot, which I noticed kind of going back and rewatching a couple scenes, which is
Interesting.
interesting. And then like his buddies, like Nicolas Cage and the dude from Reservoir Dogs, I can never remember his name.
Yeah, Penn, the
Yeah,
other Penn.
yeah. They don't really care that much.
Yeah, no.
Like I think Nicolas Cage's character is like, yeah, I'll go and watch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, like that. Like he's like,
Chris
no,
Penn.
like we're gonna. It's like a team effort. And
Yeah,
he's
and
just not Chris Penn. Yeah. And he's just
yep.
not interested in it at all. And that just kind of sets the stage right away. And then you bookend it with that scene at the end where he's finally realized that like that life it was never real.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just going
Mm-hmm.
to at best lead him to where his dad is, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's out and he's free and it's terrifying, but his life could be anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then last thing I wanted to mention is it's not so much just one scene, but just an entire sequence. When I think of this movie, I'm going to remember the entire walking around the city at night sequence when he goes out with his brother and his friend Steve.
Oh
Like
yeah,
when they
yeah.
leave, when they get back, it's like probably a good half hour,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'd say, maybe a little more. And like that entire bit just felt so memorable to me from beginning to end.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that too. I had the opening rumble and then I had I guess the end of that sequence that you're discussing, which is the out of body experience he has
Yeah.
when they get mugged. Um yeah, that was very interesting because the movie, a lot of it feels surreal, but that's where he kind of really dives into a little bit of surrealism, and it kind of takes you back, but also fits with the rest of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of that, on the sequence that you mentioned when they were out at the bar, and they clearly are younger than everybody else there, and they're getting like really drunk, like
Yeah.
sloppy teenager drunk, and just the difference in like energy between like the rest of the people at the bar and then his older brother who's like basically like really moody and just totally not feeling like he's crossed the threshold already. He's over it. um and then them who are just having like wide-eyed teenager sloppy drunk good time, and that was really well done. And that kind of scenes like that make you kind of appreciate or feel what Coppola was trying to do, or like you mentioned, maybe how this is kind of a passion project for him, kind of the types of movie he always wanted to make. I mean, he probably was a rambunctious young man once and thought like, I'm going to make movies about like this. And then now later in life, he finally was like, I got to capture like that feeling. I got to capture like what it's like, kind of just cruising what it used to be like anyways, or in his mind, cruising the streets, getting into
Yeah.
trouble. No, I like that sequence, but yeah, the out of body experience was wild. And then I would say also Matt Dillon's performance all around was kind of a defining moment for this movie. That's probably what I'll think of when I think of this movie. I think he really has a raw, naive, youthful exuberance and just kind of vibe about him all the time. When he's fighting, he's really fighting. When he's making clumsy teenager mistakes, he's doing that. The way he just kind of assumes like, yeah, I'm gonna go like hang out with this girl and like I'm gonna get the girl and I'm also gonna win this fight and I'm gonna be like the man. And like he's so sure of himself, and then how all of that is just stripped away little by little. It's just one little like hard truth after another. And the way he portrays that, and just at first he's fighting it, and then the eventual
Yep.
acceptance, really well done. Like, I wouldn't say, I know you said Ethan Hawke said it was the best
Well, that
child
leads
performance
right into the
of all
questions.
time.
I was gonna bring this
Okay,
up.
perfect,
Was
perfect
Ethan
lead in.
Hawke called Matt Dillon's performance the best performance by a child actor, which is like hitting right on the top. He was 18 years old,
Mm-hmm.
ever. So I was gonna ask you, like, how does it rank for you? And if you have a favorite, what is it?
I'm sure I probably do have a favorite. Gonna be tough to think of it off the top of my head, but I
Yeah.
will say for this, it feels like It feels like top 15, maybe top 10, or like honorable mention. I feel like if we did a top 10, it would probably make it for me because so much of the movie is built on his performance
Yeah.
and how it affects him. Really good. I mean, really, I wouldn't say that it ever like brought me to tears or anything. I don't. It doesn't have any real deep emotional gut punch. More of a slow burn, peeling away of the ego and just
Yep.
kind of like, and he does a hell of a job. So I'd say top 10, but not probably not my favorite of all time.
Yeah, I think he's really good, but I
Mhm.
I mean, for me, River Phoenix in Stand By Me
Yeah,
is I just don't think I've seen anything that's topped that.
and I feel like one of or both of the kids in Let the Right One In just nail that
It's
so
hard
hard.
too because like you get like Matt Dillon's 18 and how do you compare that to like I can't remember her name, but the
In
girl
Pan's
from
Labyrinth, the girl in Pan, or like,
no, I was gonna say the girl from the Florida Project.
oh yes,
Because
oh
she's like
god,
6.
yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna find that really quick because I
yeah.
think her name is
Her name is on the.
Brooklyn something.
Mhm. Um, yeah, no, but very well done and
Brooklyn Prince.
nice, nailed it.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and then also other very interesting performances and really kind of a low key stacked little cast. I guess let's just mention it now while we're talking about it. You have Matt Dillon, but you also have Mickey Rourke, Diane Lane, Dennis Hopper, uh, Nicolas Cage, Chris Penn, Lawrence Fishburne, Tom Waits. I mean,
Yeah.
like there were a lot of people popping in this movie. Yeah, Giancarlo Coppola, Sofia Coppola. Yeah, uh, a lot of good performances. I didn't really have any questions other than just like, how are you feeling about Dennis Hopper popping into your life over and over again on this last string of
I loved him
movies?
in this.
Yeah, yeah.
Reminded me a lot of his Hoosiers character.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought he fit really well here. He brought a really good energy to it as
hmm
kind of the dad who like he didn't seem like he was ever a dick, just kind of more absent,
Yeah, yeah,
which is, bad in a different kind of way, but I never got the feeling that he was like mean to these kids. He was just kind of more irresponsible and
yeah. And it was interesting how we got to learn a little bit enough of the backstory of the family that was like believable and felt grounded, but like no unnecessary details.
yeah.
Like they just pepper little statements in and out about, oh, I went to visit mom. Why did mom and dad divorce? How is it different for me because I knew mom versus you who were 2 years old and have never really known mom. And I
Yep.
feel like the way they acted and the way like Hopper totally nailed that. Like, first off, I think him as Matt Dillon's dad, great look. I feel like they almost looked alike and were totally believable. But
Mhm.
also like picked up on just the different way he treated the older brother versus the younger brother, and you kind of got the impression that like Matt Dillon's Rusty James was basically raised by his dad, and look at his dad, so yeah, they're kind of the same, right? Whereas Motorcycle Boy, older brother, at one point could have gone down a very different path. So it was just the family dynamic and how they pulled that off, and those three big actors doing it was really well done.
Yeah. So, observations and musings. To
Mm.
go to that point, I just wanted to point out how believable Mickey Rourke and Matt Dillon were as siblings in this movie.
Yeah, yeah.
That instantly just felt like such an established older and younger brother relationship with a lot of history, and they just fit into those two roles like a glove. I thought that was great.
hmm
And then Matt Dillon playing a drunk teenager was fantastic. That
Yeah.
just looked so realistic where he's kind of loud and then all of a sudden it's sort of hitting him and he's got this like glazed over look and then he
Yep.
kind of snaps out of that really quick and he's ready to go and
Yep.
like it
And they're
was
out in the street and he's in a good mood and
yep.
yeah.
And
Agreed.
then Tom Waits just talking about the passage of time to himself while he cleans the bar was amazing. I really
I
like
know.
all the different shots and ways that Coppola shows kind of the passage of time being much quicker than you'd like it to be in this movie, kind of
Mm,
like with the clouds or like with the shadows on the side of the building.
yeah.
There
Yeah.
are just a lot of different ways that he did that, and it was just sort of all like brought together by Tom Waits just being like a weird loner bartender in a strange scene that just kind of fits him very well.
Fits him perfectly.
And then my last musing was that the early 80s were a very good time for kids freeing animals in movies.
Oh, okay. Nice. Connect
So
the
this,
dots for me.
yeah, E.T., when Elliot tries to free all the frogs.
Okay.
And then he's freeing the, motorcycle boys freeing the animals in this movie. It just kind of feel like I instantly started thinking of E.T. during that scene. And really quick, just while I brought that scene up, I wish I had written down which movie this was, but one of Coppola's early movies, I can't remember which one it was. There's a scene where somebody goes in and frees a bunch of animals, like from the pound or something.
Yeah.
And then he's adapting this book by S.E. Hinton, and they start talking about the book and what they're going to do. And that scene gets brought up, and S.E. Hinton said, he asked her where she thought of it, and she's like, I don't remember, like this older movie I saw, and it just felt kind of cool, and I thought I'd just put this in my book. And he was like, oh, well, I directed that movie. So now I get to direct this scene twice, basically.
Wow.
Yeah, I upset at myself for forgetting which movie that was, but it was before The Godfather, so it was one of his
early
60s movies.
Yeah.
Pretty sure. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. So what else did you have for observations and musings?
The score is very interesting and very good. Kind of a lot of fast-paced little background. And he really keeps it going for a long time, almost Nolan-esque a little bit at times. I like that. The black and white is very beautiful. I mean, it's a man who has an eye for it. Cinematography was great. Lots of slow motion, like you said, passing of time, shadows, clouds, all sorts of stuff. Really well done. Made the city of Tulsa look beautiful in its own way. Skyline shots. And then my last observation or musing was that I understand for why it fits so well with the character of the older brother, motorcycle boy, that he's very soft spoken now. But at a certain point, I wish he would have spoke up a little bit. It was a little tiring constantly being like, oh, he's about to talk, like shut up, like
I have a tidbit on that.
Okay, hit me.
And on the cinematography as well, like the skyline of Tulsa. So I think we can just dive right into tidbits because I found quite a few.
Let's do it.
So the first one that I had listed was that S.E. Hinton plays the sex worker who tries to, I don't even know if seduce is the right word. Steve, do you remember that scene when she kind of shows up and
what was that towards the beginning or the end?
No, it's like right in the middle of the night when they're out on the town.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, her character is named Hooker on Strip. Which
I remember. Yep, I remember her now.
You remember that now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was S.E. Hinton, the author of the book.
Wow.
Yeah. And then Rusty James is said on average once every 2 minutes.
No way.
Yeah.
Damn, that's almost like Mr. Frodo and Sam numbers right there.
It is. And then, so to go back to the Tulsa thing, Coppola invited Chris Marker, who was a writer and photographer in the French New Wave. He was a big fan of his, so he invited him to do photography for the film. Marker arrived in Tulsa, thought the city was ugly, and went home. So, sorry for those listening in Tulsa, but that guy was not a fan of the city.
So then Coppola just had to press on without him, or he just did it all from like France,
the guy did not work on the movie. As far as I know.
He's like, I can't even save this place.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I thought it made it. I thought the black and white made it.
Yeah, I like it too. Then we've got so the score. Stuart Copeland, the drummer for the Police, wrote the score.
Whoa, that is a great tidbit. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, this could make an interesting double feature with Dead Man, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh yeah,
Sort
I
of
could see that.
surrealist, black and white. A
Yeah,
rock
cool
musician does
score.
the score.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Apparently, somehow this movie is insanely popular in Chile.
really? It's
Yeah, I guess like Coppola said, like, kind of disappointed that nobody really saw this right away. But then, like, some years later, there was just kind of a big movement and like new showings for this movie in Chile. And like, they had no idea who Coppola was. And it kind of inspired like a few filmmakers who are
oh, really
adults now. Yeah.
cool.
And then some casting stuff. Jack Nicholson was offered the role of the father, and he
Whoa.
turned it down because he did not like the script.
Okay,
He was
interesting.
also like the biggest star in the world at this point.
Yeah, probably maybe felt it was a tiny bit
And
bigger.
then Tom Cruise was supposed to be in the movie, but he dropped out when he got a lead role in, would you like to guess?
Uh, Risky Business.
Yes.
Nice. Yeah. Wow, this is really Risky Business stole him away from the super artsy Coppola
Yep. He was
project.
in The Outsiders.
Yeah. Wow.
And then the sound technicians had a hard time hearing Mickey Rourke's dialogue, so they started referring to the movie as Mumblefish.
I like that a lot. I think
Yeah,
I
I
was
did too.
referring to the movie as Mumblefish from
Right.
now on.
And then the last tidbit that I have, it's a weird one. This just kind of made me laugh a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
This is the only S.E. Hinton adaptation to not feature Emilio Estevez.
Weird.
Yeah, I think 5 of her books were adapted into movies.
Interesting. Just time and a place type of thing.
I guess. I don't know. I
Hollywood
mean,
was like, let's do all these, and then Emilio was hot at the time and a younger
well, they
actor.
made this.
So
He made this right after The Outsiders. Like Diane Lane was also in The Outsiders, and she didn't have to audition for Rumblefish because Coppola was like, "You just want to stay and do this next movie."
yeah.
And then Mickey Rourke auditioned for The Outsiders and didn't get it, but Coppola liked him for this role.
Hmm.
Yeah. So just lots of interesting stuff there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was glad that you brought up some of those things that led well into some
Great
of my
segue.
tidbits. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are good tidbits.
So then
right. Is that
that
time?
leads us to, are you bringing this up or am I?
You're bringing it up.
I can bring it up. The McCabe Coat of Excellence.
Yes. There
Big
it is.
fans of McCabe and Mrs. Miller here at Exploring Cinema, particularly of that coat.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just a nice little award that we like to give out at the end of the episode if we deem somebody worthy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we're each giving out our own, so there can be 2 winners. There can be none. We don't have to give this out to anybody if we don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
And I am curious to know who you are giving this to, if anybody.
Well, coming into this recording, I was going to give it to nobody for the first time in our Exploring Cinema history. However, talking about the Matt Dillon performance and kind of agreeing that it would be top 10 for me if I was to rank, I feel like I gotta give it to him. I'm gonna seriously give a young Matt Dillon and be like, oh, this is one of my top 10, but I'm still not giving you the McCabe Code of Excellence. Like, come on. I think he pulled it off in the end. It really, really down the stretch, because for the first half of it, he's so confident in himself. He's a little bit of just kind of a meathead, kind of
He's a bit of a doofus.
A bit of a doofus and a little bit repetitive with the one, because it's a lot of him being like, I thought it was this way. And they're like, no, it's this way, Rusty James. Right. And so after that, you're like, okay, is this all that this is going to be for him? But he actually, like, the growth at the end of the movie, I felt like he pulled that off. So I'm giving the McCabe Code of Excellence to Matt Dillon.
I was between nobody has been considered as well. And then thought about Coppola a little bit, but I don't think this is his best movie. So it's hard to kind of do that. And then I thought about Stephen H. Burum, the cinematographer.
I was going to say the mayor of the city of Tulsa. Yeah. Pretty
I mean,
good.
I feel like if I was gonna have to get like what I think of when I think of this movie is the cinematography and just Matt Dillon kind of blindly walking around the city at night.
Yeah.
So, I think I'm gonna agree with you here, and I think we're both gonna give it to Matt Dillon.
Nice. Good job, Rusty James. They're coming to give you a coat, Rusty James.
There you go. Rusty James would look pretty sick in this coat.
Oh yeah, bring it back up for a second. Bring that coat back up for a second.
Yeah, I will.
Oh yeah, Matt Dillon, young Matt
Mm-hmm.
Dillon in that for sure. Walking around Tulsa, just
With
boiling
that
hot
with that bandana.
with that bandana. Yeah,
Yeah.
riding a motorcycle with that coat on,
Mm.
just flowing in the wind.
Yes.
Yeah, Matt
Absolutely.
Dillon for sure. Good
Yeah.
job. Definitely, I think my favorite Matt Dillon performance. He's been around for a while, and it's always like, oh yeah, he was in that. Oh yeah, he was in that. But I
I
mean,
really liked him in Asteroid City. I wish he was in that more.
oh yeah, there you go, another great example.
So then on to closing statements.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, this is just a really fascinating movie where I didn't love it right when it was over, but it won't really leave my head.
Yeah,
It's just kind of wormed its way in there. So I don't quite know exactly how much I like it yet, but I just had a fascinating and thought-provoking teen movie unlike any other that I've seen. It just does feel like a singular movie about teenagers, and for
that's a
that, I
good
just
point.
think it's really impressive.
That's a good point. Yeah, I guess yeah, especially when you compare it to that genre, it's like its counterparts. It definitely has a lot more going on and just very unique, kind of
Yeah.
in some ways. Yeah, I was going to say a timeless story of the bravado and naivete of youth slowly sinking into the harsh reality of adulthood.
Ooh. I thought you were gonna say of that river.
Of that river. No, yeah, I just think because it's shot with the black and white, kind of surreal, it does have a little bit of a timeless feel to it. Very relatable. A lot of kind of small, heartbreaking, relatable moments in
Mm-hmm.
it, where it's like, yeah, like it does suck growing up and realizing what the world is really like, and he hits that over and over pretty well. So
Yeah,
I,
there's a lot of truth in this movie, I think, about kind of what it looks like once you realize that the sort of established paved path isn't really either for you at all or might not even exist anymore.
Yeah, I'll think about. I think the nice little touch at the end of Nicolas Cage stealing his girl and kind of almost just at the end being just straight up and honest about it. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
man, like you didn't
I
see it coming. Like,
I should have added that to my defining moments because that scene's really good. And how
mhm.
he rejects the pool stick.
Yeah, mm-hmm,
He
mm-hmm.
tries to like kind of maturely like pass the torch. And he's
Yep,
like, dude, I'm not even like, I think, what does he say? Don't flatter yourself.
yeah. Don't flatter yourself. Then he just lets it drop on the ground.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's really good.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Glad you picked this one up, and glad I've seen it now. Definitely worth a
Yeah.
watch.
Really interesting movie.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Can we tell them what the next exploring cinema will be?
We can if we're confident that that's what it's gonna
I
be.
think I think so. I think so. It's another 1980. No, I'm just kidding.
It's The Outsiders.
Yeah, and then Die Hard. Um, no, it is going to be. We're going back to the 70s for American Graffiti, which is a movie about the early 60s. So we're going back.
Yeah.
We're going back. But yeah, so George
And then we're
Lucas.
gonna go back a little bit more after that is kind of the plan, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, the next will be a 60s movie that's about life in the 40s.
If we could actually find all of that,
If we
that'd be
could do
interesting.
a
Yeah.
cascade of the decades, start with now and just move our way back.
Well, we just watched an 80s movie about life in what, the 60s or the
It was kind
50s?
of hard to tell. It was kind of yeah,
It was
kind of
somewhere between like 55 and like 63. It
yeah.
felt like to me.
Hmm. Hmm.
It
All
felt
right.
pre JFK assassination and post World War II.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that vibe. Is it my turn to put a wrap on the show?
It is.
All right. Blind terror in a fight can easily pass for courage.